What's up, everybody? We appreciate you being here on another episode of InsideCarolina.com's Coast to Postgame podcast. It's the second one of these we've done on the heels of a UNC basketball Monday nighter instead of doing our regular Sunday night Coast to Coast podcast. And this show is brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. Check them out. All right, we appreciate you being here. I am Joey Powell with you as always. I'm thankful that you've tuned into this episode. And with me, as always, these guys are as durable and as reliable as Caleb Love showing up in the last 2 minutes of a ball game. Sherrell McMillan, Sean Moran. Sean, how are you?
Doing much better than what I was expecting with just a few minutes ago coming onto this podcast. So
definitely. Sherrell, how's that heart rate, man?
Oh, I'm good. I had definitely prepared for another type of podcast. So it's like when Greg and those guys, they get their game stories written and there's 5 minutes left and the team goes on a 25-3 run. You got to erase everything. That's kind of where I'm at. So
delete.
I'm rewriting what I'm going to say, as we talk.
Well, that works too. Appreciate you guys being here. We mentioned at the start of the show, Tar Heels play another Monday nighter after a win on Sunday. We've been saying on the show over and over again that they had to get a win. Well, they beat NC State by 10 in a game that wasn't really that close on Saturday. And now they are 9-point winners, 88-79 in overtime against Syracuse at home on senior night. And fellas, they showed us another way that they could perform in a basketball game. I don't think they've done this year yet, where they looked really good, gave it away, came back, made it overtime, and then absolutely just got microwave offense at overtime. This team continues to have the most giant chasm between what they are. I guess Sherrell likes to use the word variance. Guys, as much as I like to talk, this is tough. This is another way. What's your biggest takeaway from this win in overtime against Syracuse? Sherrell, will come to you first.
It's very simple, Joey. They won the game, which is what they had to do. Honestly, I'm not trying to be simplistic or keep these podcasts at 30 minutes or below. But that is the objective now at this point in the season, is just win the game by any means necessary. And it looked ugly for, a good portion of it. Texting with people offline, I was like, well, you just can't trust this team. And that was what I was thinking. It was like, man, they did so good in those two games, Virginia Tech and NC State, and then they let it go just like they did against Pittsburgh. But to their credit, they found a way. We were talking, I think last week, about their record in games decided by 10 points or fewer. And this is another one where they figured something out about how to close out some of these close games. So I think that's important moving forward. More important, they had a double bye. You would think a 14-win team in the ACC, despite it being down, is kind of a lock. So I think that was a big one for them. And now they can go on to Saturday and just play with absolutely no pressure at all.
It's great that you point that out. As much as we have bemoaned and fans have really done so much hand-wringing with this team this year, the fact that they're guaranteed a double bye in the ACC tournament is, again, nothing short of quite outlandish, if you ask me. So quick stats I want to throw at our listeners, and shout out to those of you who are actually watching this on YouTube as well. Leaky Black, 7 assists, only 2 turnovers, finished with 8 points, but I think it was easily probably his best all-around game. Brady Manick, 22 points, plus minus of 11 for Brady tonight. Just had some really timely tap-outs too. Armando, I think I'm looking at 17 and 17. The UNC box has a different number. They have 17 and 18, but 17 points, 17 rebounds, making Armando Bacot tied for the lead in UNC for career or for double doubles in the season. Sean, that's a lot of numbers to digest. Of all those guys, who is your player of the game and why?
It's a great question. I mean, I give it to Brady just because he was, throughout the majority of the game offensively was hitting shots, making the passes. Even the announcers were saying what a great passer he was, which we've been fortunate enough to watch the whole season. And he came up with big plays, but I could easily give it. You mentioned Leaky Black. I think he's been it took him 3.5 years, but I think after that Miami Wake Forest week, he kind of quickly developed into the player that everybody has been hoping for. 8.77 is kind of a perfect stat line.
Mhm.
And then obviously Armando was 17 and 17 and kind of being that steady hand throughout the game. And then, I mean, even, Caleb Love, who 2 of 12, 2 of 13, and then hits 2 huge shots. So, I give it to Brady, but you could probably give it to really anybody that was in the starting lineup or played the most minutes.
How do you explain a guy like Caleb Love, Sean? I know we've tried to do that probably 9-10 times on this podcast, but for as much as he is able to disappear over the course of a game early on, you can't deny that every time he gets the ball in a late game situation, he wants to be the guy. He is not afraid of taking that yoke upon his shoulders and trying to be the guy. And I made the joke. It's like every time he shoots or every time he gets the ball, he's trying to atone for every bad thing he's ever done in his life. How do you try to explain that to folks that are just basketball purists? How do you explain that, Sean?
I mean, I think it goes to his confidence. Most people, they miss 10 shots. They're probably trying to kind of inch to the corner or look to pass or drive. But he's, to his credit, he's ready to shoot, and he knocks them down, or he has knocked them down. When it's been tight late. I think when you watch Caleb, there's obviously some frustrating moments, but you have seen a lot of growth this year. I mean, I think you saw some of the passes in the first half that were, really nice. And then you see at the end of the first half where he's pushing the ball up and he probably has a few options, but takes it himself. So I think there's still those frustrating moments, but to his credit, he worked tremendously on his outside shooting, and that's given him the confidence to take and knock those down. I mean, you can go back to his freshman year. I think it was the game at NC State where he was wide open for a big 3 at the end of the game and just, wasn't even close. And here he is knocking down, shots 5-7 feet behind the 3-point line.
Yeah. Sherrell, I want to come to you because I think North Carolina has found something these last couple of games in Puff Johnson. Granted, he only he didn't finish with a ton of points tonight, but the energy that he gives this team, and you saw him tonight, he is not afraid to get up in somebody's shorts on defense. And I think that's a little contagious. We saw more defensive intensity at times by this North Carolina team tonight than I think we've seen most of the season. What do you envision Puff Johnson's role can be, not just going forward into next year, but for down the stretch in this season?
Well, I think you saw it. He has become the 6th man. I mean, they played essentially 6 guys. McAdoo played those first 3 minutes, and then it was those 6 for I guess that's the other 42 minutes of the game. So he's going to be called upon. I think what is great about him, when you pair him with Leaky, you allow Leaky to do some of the things he does best. But also, if you go back to the Duke game, you remember what Hubert Davis said. He said, well, I couldn't put Leaky on both AJ Griffin and Paolo Banchero because UNC only had one player like Leaky. Well, I think since that time, in that month, Puff has become a much better player, got more minutes, got more experience. And when him and Leaky are in the game together, that's 2 really long, tall defensive players who can make it difficult for opposing 3s and 2s and 4s. And they can all switch those things too. So I think defensively, it makes them very versatile. That's a great thing. And then Puff, he can hit an open shot. I've said it. I think he is kind of what you think of the prototypical UNC small forward in the past. I think maybe now that's becoming more of a 3-4 as we move forward into what Hubert Davis wants to do. But he can hit a timely shot, as you saw. He doesn't mind mixing it up. He's really tough. He likes to play hard, and then he's smart. I think that's most important. Very much in the vein of Brady Manick, in that the ball moves when he touches it. He's always looking towards the basket, trying to find someone open. So he just has those high basketball IQ things you expect from someone who's, older brothers played basketball, someone whose brother plays for the Phoenix Suns, whose dad is a coach, whose mom played basketball, all those things. You expect that from someone like Puff. And I think he's starting to show it. And it is a huge development for UNC just because they didn't really have anyone else to fit into that Leaky Black kind of mold earlier in the season. And now they have Puff.
Yeah, he's got a little pistol starter in him, that's for sure. Sean, what do you feel about Puff?
I've been very pleasantly surprised. I mean, I think over the years, the knock on UNC, for whether it's true or not, has been that they're a soft team in general. And I think for Puff, here's a guy that comes in, pretty skinny guy, can shoot, and you kind of think he's just going to float around the perimeter. And I think, as Sherrell mentioned, he really likes to mix it up. He's not the strongest yet, but he's willing to fight really hard for offensive rebounds. He's willing to guard and get through picks, and he offers a lot. And once again, only made one shot today, but you kind of mix the past two games, and you saw a sampling of what he can do, and it also gives the team a different dimension when he is out there, because now you can play Brady at the 5, or give Brady a rest. There's different lineup possibilities with him now playing well, and we all know that those will be needed, especially with the very short roster that UNC has been playing with.
Sherrell, I was a little troubled tonight by UNC's inability to enter the high post properly against this zone. If you remember Roy Williams' ability to kind of carve this zone up. Granted, it was also due to the different sorts of bodies and players he had on the court. But is UNC's inability to trigger that high post entry tonight, is that just a byproduct of having a smaller lead guard in RJ Davis, or was it something they were just not comfortable doing, or was it just not something they want to do and they would rather shoot the 3-pointer, because they almost shot 40% from 3? So which one do you think which one do you think that is?
I think it was a little bit of both. I think Brady Manick, we saw him 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times flash into the middle, and he was open and he just didn't get the ball. So I think maybe, to your point, there are some height limitations, and then you have the two tall, or I guess you have the Boeheim brothers kind of out at the top of the zone, and neither of them are particularly short. So for someone like RJ Davis, it might have been a little tough trying to look over them and get it there accurately. I think he had a turnover maybe on the first or second possession trying to get it to the middle. So that's probably part of it. But I think this team shoots it so well that, honestly, an open 3 from Manick is probably a better option than flashing to the post and trying to make an extra pass. Sometimes, but maybe not all the time. You can't just go out there and jack 45 threes. But I think it's probably both of those. That this team shoots it so well throughout the season that they felt really comfortable that they would be able to knock down some shots, maybe more than past Carolina teams have.
I mean, they shot 14 of 36 from 3 tonight. I can remember one point early in the game where I think UNC's 20 of their 22 points were for 3-pointers, and they cut to a shot of Roy Williams sitting in his seat as they went to commercial break. And you just kind of wonder what is Roy wondering about this team right now. Sean, speaking of UNC's 3-point percentage, we've seen them be a better shooting team from the perimeter than we've seen in North Carolina in a long time. Are you worried that could be something that becomes their Achilles heel in the postseason, or do you feel like they kind of are who they are and it's part of their identity at this point?
No, I mean, I think we've talked about variance, and with that, I think a higher volume of 3-point shots is going to lead to that kind of up and down nature. I mean, we've seen Pittsburgh, they struggled, or some of the game. I mean, in a lot of these games outside of NC State, there have been stretches where the team goes cold, and they're only getting 8 to 10 points in a 10-minute span, and a lot of that is Caleb's 1 for 4. We've seen against the top teams, both guards aren't hitting, so it definitely is a concern. But at the same time, four guys now with Leaky showing the ability to shoot are able to knock down jump shots. I think the last few years it's been one or two. So you obviously live by the 3, die by the 3, but at the same time you have Armando in the middle, and you do have capable shooters. So yes, there could be games where they struggle or they're off early, but at the very least they can score in a hurry. But yes, it is a concern, because there have been a lot of kind of 10-minute spurts where they have struggled to put up points.
Sherrell, one last note on this game before we start talking about this coming weekend and the send-off to end all send-offs.
So two things, you start looking at the minutes played for UNC, and they're all, I mean, it's just an insane box score. 44 for Black, 42 for Davis, 43 for Manic, 43 for Baycott, and 36 for Love. And I was thinking, I was like, man, when's the last time someone played that many minutes? And obviously, you go look for overtimes. I think there was a double overtime against Clemson that kept the streak alive back in the Hansbrough days. But friend of the program, Jawad Williams, played 50 minutes in UNC's loss against Wake Forest in 2003. So I just went back. I mean, that has to be the most regular season minutes like somebody's ever played in a game. He played 50 minutes in a 3 overtime game. So shout outs to him. And then
what a game that was.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was a good one. And then I think you have to give RJ Davis a ton of credit for how he played today. I think defensively, more than anything, I mean, he made some big shots. He had some great passes, but I thought his defense on Joe Girard was one of the keys of the game, because while you had Swider, who was just, going off and doing his thing, Girard is a really good shooter. He shoots 41% from three. And I think they, I'm not sure how many times they played against each other in high school, but I think there's some competition there. And RJ Davis just completely took him out of the game. I think he was, let me look real quick. He was 4 of 12, I believe. Was Girard? Yeah, 4 of 12 and 1 of 5 from three. And when you play 45 minutes and you're a great shooter, and that's the only offense you're able to generate, that tells me that whoever was guarding you did a great job. Now, obviously, he got the shot at the end of regulation, to send it to overtime. But I thought RJ Davis overall just had a really, really phenomenal game.
Yeah, he really did. And I'm glad you pointed. I mean, Girard hit that shot to send it overtime, but it was contested and it was not,
Yeah.
he was trying to get to the rim and RJ kept him from doing that. So, yeah, I think that's a great point. And his defense is certainly going to be needed down the stretch.
Oh, and one last thing, Joey.
Yeah, sure.
Energy. Yeah, you notice that energy, effort, and toughness haven't been uttered in feels like weeks now. Really since the Pittsburgh game, you haven't heard energy, effort, and toughness, because they have figured that out too. It seems like they are playing hard for the entire game.
When this team is engaged, it's amazing how much easier things seem to come to them. And I don't think that's by accident. All right, take a quick break. I want to talk about our friends over at Johnny T-Shirt. Big fans of theirs. I hope that all of Inside Carolina's listeners and subscribers are fans of Johnny T-Shirt. I've got a purchase coming from Johnny T-Shirt. As soon as they're in stock, I'm going to be snatching up one of the new Nike fitteds that the baseball team is wearing. They have one now. It is all navy, but it has a Carolina blue window paint on it, which, as you guys know, I'm a fan of the fitted hat there. And Johnny T-Shirt will have those. As soon as they're in stock, I will be snatching one of those up. I will use the extra 10% discount that you get being a premium subscriber. And I would encourage everyone else to do the same thing. Spring sports are in full swing. Football practice starts tomorrow, if you can believe that. Spring football starts tomorrow at the practice facility. So it's never a wrong time to think about getting new gear. And when you think about getting new gear, make sure you're thinking about Johnny T-Shirt. JohnnyT-shirt.com, East Franklin Street in Chapel Hill. Family owned, alumni operated. Be sure you check them out. Give them some love, because they've been supporting all of this beautiful content that you get right here on Inside Carolina. Take a quick break. Let the national guys run some of their advertisements in here, and we'll be right back to talk a little bit about the upcoming game this weekend for the Tar Heels as they close out the regular season. And we might even have, our regular reggaeton horns Gigi Jackson update. Stick around. All right, boys. One more game left on the docket. I don't know if you guys have heard this, and I was shocked to learn. Apparently, this coming Saturday in Cameron Indoor Stadium is Coach K's last game. And, I can't believe this hasn't been promoted or that folks have not been discussing this, but I'm a little shocked to learn that. But apparently that's the case. Tar Heels will be going into bringing their 22-8 record, which I can't believe we're talking about a 22-8 team being on the bubble. But they'll be going in, heading into Cameron to face off against Duke. Duke is 25-4. They do currently lead the ACC. They have a game tomorrow night on March the 1st, and then we'll play the Tar Heels on Saturday at 6. Just sitting here, talking about this Duke team, they do shoot the three better than they did early in the season. We've talked about what an absolute beast Mark Williams is in the paint for them, and I think he's been found money. The fact that they have a guy like Theo John as, and you guys know what a Theo John stan I am. The fact they've got a guy like Theo John as kind of gravy or an added garnish for this team is going to be a problem. So after we saw the absolute beatdown that we saw in the Smith Center, why should we think that things might be changed this time for the Tar Heels going on the road in Cameron? Sean, I'm going to ask you first.
I think offensively, they should hopefully be a little better prepared. But I still think it's going to come back defensively. And as much as I hate to admit it, I do think Duke is a championship, probably will win the championship or get, get there, similar to 2015. And, with UNC, there's always going to be kind of that one player that they're struggling to match up with. So if it's Griffin, can they, can they force him to be a standstill 3-point shooter, and maybe he struggles versus attacking off the dribble and doing what he wants. And I think we did see that Leaky can at least give Paolo a difficult time, but offensively they're going to come, it'll have to be similar to NC State where, they're coming out hot, or like Syracuse tonight, they're coming out hot and hitting some shots to get that confidence. Because if they get down big or struggling to get baskets, it could be another long afternoon.
Just sitting here, you mentioned AJ Griffin. I mean, he's hitting 49% of his 3-pointers. He's made 56 on the year. But I think something that a lot of Tar Heel fans did not expect to see is that Wendell Moore is shooting 40% from 3. Averaging just really, really good stats. He's been such a nice addition for Duke. Sherrell, is Wendell Moore going to be the guy that kind of spoils it for UNC this time? It was AJ Griffin in the Smith Center, but it was Wendell Moore 2 years ago. Who's your wild card for Duke this time, or who's going to be the bee in the bonnet, to use a Royism?
Jamie Roach seems to have started playing much better for Duke. I would say over the last couple of weeks. I haven't watched a ton of their games, but he's been, up in the 120s in offensive rating in 3 of the last 4 games. And if he adds another 3-point shooter to Griffin, I mean, shooting 50% from 3 essentially is pretty ridiculous.
Unconscious.
So if he adds that, then, that could spell trouble for UNC. I think the reason, to your question, it can be different is because it's going to be very hard for Love and Davis to play as poorly as they did this time, even though it's at Duke and it's a tough environment. There's going to be some turnovers. I mean, their play was really, really poor that first game. So you expect some improvement from that standpoint. I think UNC, a key is they need to try to do to Duke what Duke did to UNC, in that get, their most important player in foul trouble. And for me, for UNC, the most important player on Duke is Mark Williams, because if you can get him out, that gives a lot of room to Armando Bacot to kind of operate and do his thing. That helps with offensive rebound. It just helps with everything. It clears the deck a little bit. I think he is their most important player, especially defensively, but even overall, because he's just so long and it's very difficult to stop him. So if they can find a way to get a couple of quick fouls on him, I don't know that Paolo Banchero has the desire, the energy, the want to really play defense against Armando Bacot in the post. He'd rather kind of be on the perimeter doing his thing. And so that could be an advantage for UNC if they're able to do that. But I don't want anyone to really get their hopes up too much. I don't mean to throw cold water, but this is
it's a bad matchup.
It's a bad matchup. It's already a tough ask for UNC to win at Cameron, even though they did it last year. And then you add kind of the other stuff that's going on, and it is a monumental task. And I'll say it. I'm going to say it now because I don't want to be prisoner of the moment if the unlikely chance that it happens. But you won't be able to name me a bigger regular season win where they're able to go and pull off the upset in Carolina history. I just don't think you can. You won't be able to tell me a bigger regular season win. Yeah. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it does, it is in that stratosphere where it'll be remembered forever.
Well, I'll go ahead and say this too, so that I can't be accused of being a prisoner of the moment. But if there was ever a game where Mr. Fuji would make an appearance, you can go ahead and believe that it's going to be this game, Coach K's last, with however many people are there, whatever they're charging for tickets, blah, 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 blah. One more question I want to ask you guys before we move on to some recruiting discussion and get out of here for the night. Greg Barnes, Inside Carolina beat writer extraordinaire, has been pretty staunch in his opinion that he thinks all of the pressure will be on Duke in this game. I'm just going to ask each one of you guys, do you agree or do you disagree, and why? Sean?
I mean, the pressure is definitely on Duke with everything that it's been built up to, similar to, I'd probably say JJ Redick's senior year game in 06 when I think they're 8-point favorites and lost. So, if UNC is able to, either land a strong punch or at least withstand, the punches that they did in the first game, the pressure will be on Duke for sure. But at the same time, they have a very talented team. So the pressure will be on them, but, it'll be more on UNC's defense to kind of see how long that pressure can stay with them.
Sherrell, is Greg absolutely out of his mind, or can you see his logic there?
No, 100%. I mean, Duke is still, whether they should be or not, they're being discussed as a potential 1 seed, and you can't lose to someone like Carolina, whoever you want to say is not very good. You can't lose a game like that at home right before the ACC tournament. So they've got that. Then, they want to close out, Coach K's career at Cameron, obviously. So there's that. And then they beat them by, they were up by 30 at one point in the Smith Center.
Yes.
So it's a lot to say, well, take these guys seriously and handle this as Coach K's last game. And there's, I don't know, President Obama and President Bush, and there's Tony Romo and Jason Garrett and all these, you see what I did there? There's all these wonderful, celebrities and stuff in the crowd. So that's a lot of pressure. You're expected to win because you destroyed this team a month ago.
Is Jason Garrett a celebrity?
I mean, for me, he is.
Sherrell.
All right, okay.
So that's what I'm saying. So I don't think Greg's crazy at all. And to Sean's point, I'll dig up the stat, but Carolina gets up pretty much every game at Cameron by 10 at some point.
And gives it away.
And gives it away. But I think this one, if it were to happen in this one, it might be a little tougher for Duke, even though they're more talented, just because, it's going to be sweltering, man. That environment is going to be insane. And can you imagine being, they have the class that saved Coach K.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being in the class that lost his last home game?
Yeah.
So they're feeling it already. It's Monday night, and I guarantee you they're already feeling that pressure.
Well, it'll definitely be an interesting cauldron of stew to watch. And Sean dropped in the chat here, and this is shocking. Sean, are you right on this stat that everybody tonight had a 110 plus offensive rating?
Yeah, not counting Ryan McAdoo. KenPom just published their update for the game, and 1.21 points per possession. Everybody 110 plus.
Jesus.
From Leaky 135, Armando 140, Brady 135, RJ 110, Caleb 123, and Puff 117. Which that's an offensive ball game.
That's got to be Leaky's best in his career, I would imagine. Without looking,
it helps only having 8 turnovers. Obviously helps that. Going against the zone where there's kind of a lack of pressure, but still 21 assists. In that zone. So two solid offensive performances in a row.
Well, I appreciate that statistical perspective, Sherrell.
Since the KenPom is updated, let's go to the favorite stat. Everybody ready? So conference only defense, they are 4th, and they're 3 points clear of Miami for 5th. So barring them giving up 200 in Cameron, they're going to finish in the top 4 in the ACC in conference only defense, which is pretty impressive considering some of the offensive or defensive performances they had earlier in the season.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the good news is, I guess, that a lot of the eggs that they laid were, at least 3 of them were out of conference. All right, guys, this is where we will drop in the reggaeton horns. If John can get this in post, we'd appreciate it, because this is our weekly GG Jackson update. And this is not just, hey, where's he going to go? Sherrell actually went and watched him play a playoff game. Was it Saturday night or Sunday night, Sherrell? I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so it was the South Carolina High School League Upper Region Championship. And basically that's the state semifinal, essentially. So they won the game 58-50. It was not a pretty game, but really hard fought, hard played. It wasn't Jackson's best game either. We hadn't seen him since December. He was much better in December, especially offensively. And if you check out the report we did on the premium board, he called his play, quote, sorry. And I love a good sorry. Like that
very old school Southern.
Yeah, it reminds me of my uncles. It reminds me of home. You sorry. Like, so I thought that was good self-recognition from him that he didn't play well offensively. What I did see that I really liked that I hadn't seen too much before was his defensive ability. I mean, the game really changed when he started blocking shots, and he has good timing on his blocks. He can block with, left hand, right hand. I think he had 3 fouls, and only one of them came in a block when he was kind of late for a rotation. So that impressed me. His perimeter game, I think, is still burgeoning. It is not where he wants it to be in the future. Obviously, he's still a junior in high school, but there were a couple of times where they isolated him at the top of the key, and he tried to dribble and go to the hole, and just it was a little bit too much, and it resulted in turnovers. I think he had 4 of them in that situation. He was most effective though as a rim runner, lots of energy, and then he had a couple of pro moves when he was with his back to the basket. So I still think he is in college just a true straight 4, not even small ball 5 or anything like that. Like he is what you want as a 4 these days in college basketball. He's only took 2 threes. He missed both of them, but his shot isn't janky or anything. It's a good looking shot. So I was impressed, but probably for not the reasons I thought I was going to be impressed before the game started. And from a recruiting standpoint, it does seem to be South Carolina, North Carolina, and Duke, kind of the 3 that he would be choosing among, not between, because it's 3 among. That's for you, Joey. And that decision.
Look, you don't need to give me that. You already gave me a sorry and a janky and a burgeoning. So I'm not going to hold you to your grammar tonight. Please continue.
Gotcha. And so, we still think a decision could happen before AAU ball starts. The EYBL circuit starts in Orlando in April. So that's kind of where things stand now. And he plays in the state championship game on Thursday night.
All right. Well, obviously there will be follow-up there. Sean, I know you had a chance to watch his full game last week. Is there anything you'd like to add on top of that? And I'm going to do this. I have held my tongue long enough. I'm going to ask you for a player comp for Gigi Jackson. I know you hate doing those, but you know what? I'm driving the car tonight, so I need you to give me your additions from seeing his game last week, and then give us a player comp before we get out of here.
You are driving the car, so I'm in a tough spot on that one. But I was able to watch the full game, not in person, but at least watch the full game versus highlights. The game right before Sherrell saw him in person. That was actually my first time seeing a full game, which took a little while to do. But Sherrell mentioned the shooting, and I think the quick release that he does have was something that stood out to me. In the game I saw, he knocked down top of the key from probably 6-7 feet behind the 3-point line, but he was also he also missed a few. So I think he's definitely a capable shooter, just given that quick release and distance, but definitely something that he needs to shore up. But really it was defensively that was the most impressive to me in terms of him switching, him just guarding the guards straight up. And as Sherrell mentioned, kind of the ideal defensive player where, he can play against the bigs, but if you put him in pick and roll, it's not going to be a, matchup problem, which, I think is what we've seen a lot. So in terms of that, it's not a great comparison by any means, but I am going to go with Jabari Smith from Auburn. And the reason I'm saying that, not shooting wise, because Jabari is one of the best pure big man shooters I've seen, but really in terms of, once again, being that modern 4. I think he's the perfect 4 for Auburn right now, offensively and defensively. And I think Gigi would kind of offer whatever team, that same aspect of being a force on both sides of the ball, a top 3 draft pick, and somebody that really can make sure that the teams aren't taking advantage of that 4 that might either be too small or too big. So not the greatest one from the shooting perspective, but in terms of playing style and what they could bring to a team as a freshman.
Well, hey man, that's a pretty good comparison, especially since I didn't give you any prep for that. So thank you for humoring me here. All right, boys, it's time to get out of here. I'm going to give you the last crack to throw anything else into this pie before we go. Sherrell?
I would say for UNC fans to root for Syracuse. I hope they have a great shooting night against Miami later this week, because if Miami loses, then North Carolina will be the 3 seed. If Miami wins their last 2 games, then North Carolina will be the 4 seed. And obviously, if you're the 3 seed, you avoid a certain team who has the most talent in the ACC for another round. So, I think the rooting guy for UNC is UNC fans is go Syracuse.
Well, you're not going to see that from Cole Slider against Miami. He'll probably go 0 for 17 with 1 free throw and 3 turnovers. Sean, anything you want to throw out on the top of this pie before we go?
Well, that was a Cole Slider that Villanova fans thought they were getting, and as my Villanova fan said, I don't think he scored 36 points all last season. But I am gonna maybe steer the car for a few seconds and throw a few Q&As to Sherrell and you. So when we've talked recruiting, we're always talking about, well, how do we think these guys will project, especially, a guy like Tyler Nickel, or some of these guys that are ranked, kind of in, say, 50 to 100. So went through last year's RSCI, which kind of takes ESPN, Rivals, 24/7 and aggregates them. Not the best, use, because I'd say that this past class was probably the one most hurt by COVID. But you look at players 51 through 40, you take out, there's 8, red shirts or just weren't playing. So you got 42 players. How many do you think average over 10 points per game?
From 2021 or 2020?
As this current freshman group.
Out of 42, how many average 10 or more?
Yep.
8.
I'm going to go less than that. I'll say 5.
2.
Wow.
Jabari Smith and.
Well, sorry, I'm going like ranked 51 through.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
So who are the 2?
Smith from NC State and then Nemhard from Creighton.
Okay, gotcha.
But in terms of 8, there's only eight guys that average over 7 points per game. So, right, I mean, you can probably do this over the last few years, but even just that shows. I mean, we're seeing it this year with Dunn and Styles, right? That there's not a lot of impact from sub 50 guys. Sometimes there is, but I think it's always good to actually see what the ones are currently doing when projecting forward. So just something interesting I was looking at over the weekend.
Yeah, if you go back, Eric Bossi, we did the live chat with him a couple of weeks ago. He was just talking about how this is going to filter down for another couple of years because the 21 class is kind of delayed because of COVID, and then he's the 22, 23, and 24 classes are not the best ever. Let's put it that way. So when you add all that together, then you're going to have, it looks like in the future of college basketball, less freshmen making an impact. There are already going to be less freshmen because of G League and because of overtime and because of other things. And so you shrink that already and limit the pool. And then of those who are going to college, they're not quite as good as their counterparts, say, from 2018 to 2020. So that's a big deal for, schools like Kentucky and Duke and to some degree North Carolina and the ones who get some of these top 15 freshmen. So that's something to look out for moving forward.
Man, that's I love that. I love that stat, Sean, not just for its obscurity, but also because I think it really helps to level set expectations. I think for a lot of folks that listen and watch this podcast, I think there's always this desire, especially the way North Carolina has recruited over the last few years, where you're seeing more guys past the top 40 in rankings. And I think it's good to help level set those expectations. And then when, like you guys said, when you throw in that caveat that Bossy mentioned and Sherrell just recapped about COVID, it really does kind of stretch things out for a little bit. And it's just not the same basketball that you're used to seeing, at least, in the recent past. Boys, I appreciate it. Appreciate you staying up late with me tonight. And I'm an old guy, so this is way late for me. I appreciate you staying up with me. Appreciate what it is you guys bring to the show. Want to give a big shout out to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring, to John Siegley for producing. But we hope to catch you guys next time. After the Duke game will be Saturday, and we'll have our regular show back on Sunday. By then, we'll have an idea of what the ACC tournament's going to look like, and we can talk about that. But until then, I'm Inside Carolina's Joey Powell. I'm not Inside Carolina. I'm Joey Powell for Inside Carolina.
You are Inside Carolina because you work for Inside. I mean, you cover Carolina, so you're inside.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'm not out roving like a nomad. For Sean Moran, for Sherrell McMillan, it's late. I'm Joey Powell. We'll talk to you guys next time. Late.